The fluorescent lights of the massive mall office reflected off the polished floors, making everything look sterile and cold. The three of them stood side by side, identical in face but not in attitude, wearing the company-issued uniforms that felt like chains. The manager, a tall white man with a permanent sneer, paced in front of them, arms crossed. "You call this work?" he barked, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Stupid idiots! Can't even handle simple tasks without screwing everything up." The twins flinched as he slammed a clipboard on the counter. One of them, the loudest and most defiant, shot back. "We're doing our best, you prick." Her words hung in the air like a challenge, but it only seemed to amuse him. He leaned in closer, eyes cold, and spat. "Best? Your best is garbage. You think anyone will respect this shit? Clean it up and clean it properly, or I swear I'll make you wish you were never born." Their stomachs churned, a mix of fear and rage building in their chests. They had never been treated like this before, not even in school. Later, hiding in the cramped bathroom, one of the triplets whispered, tears threatening to spill, "Why does he hate us so much?" Another muttered, "Maybe we're just fucking cursed. Everything we touch turns to shit." The youngest, always the peacemaker, clenched her fists, jaw tight. "No, we're not cursed. We just have to survive. One day, someone will see what we're worth." They stared at their reflections, identical faces twisted in frustration, determination battling despair. Each of them felt the cracks in their bond forming, tiny fissures that fear and humiliation were slowly widening. The day was only beginning, and already it felt like hell.
The day didn't get any easier. By mid-morning, the triplets were running between floors, carrying heavy trays of food for executives who barely glanced at them, barking orders at every step. The manager hovered behind them like a shadow of doom, constantly yelling, "You idiots are fucking useless! Do I need to spell everything out for you?" His words struck like whips. The twins' muscles ached, their backs burned, and their patience thinned to nothing. One of them dropped a tray, sending glasses shattering across the marble floor. "Are you stupid or just blind?" the manager screamed, his face red with fury. "Pick it up, clean it with your hands, or maybe I should teach you a better way since you're obviously fucking imbeciles!" The youngest froze, heart pounding, while the middle one gritted her teeth. "You rotten prick," she muttered under her breath, hoping he wouldn't hear. But of course he did. He slammed his hand against the counter. "What was that? Speak up, bitch!" Panic rose in the room like smoke. The triplets moved faster than ever, spilling water over their uniforms, slipping, almost falling, barely managing to survive the day without breaking down completely. By the time their shift ended, bruises and cuts dotted their arms and hands, evidence of both the work and the constant verbal abuse. They walked to the corner of the parking lot, collapsing onto the concrete curb. "This is insane," the eldest said, voice trembling. "How are we supposed to survive this? He's insane!" The youngest's lips quivered. "We'll survive, somehow. We always do." But even as they clung to each other, the tension between them grew. Fingers were pointed over minor mistakes, whispers of blame filled the air, and the weight of humiliation settled like a heavy fog. Somewhere in the distance, a black luxury car slowed near the entrance, its driver scanning the lot with interest, though none of the triplets noticed.
The triplets arrived at the mall exhausted, muscles sore and spirits battered. But they had no choice. They needed the paycheck to survive. The manager was waiting, arms crossed, eyes cold. "I swear you girls are the dumbest fucking things I've ever hired," he sneered. "Clean the food court windows. And don't even think about leaving a streak, or I'll make you eat the damn glass." They exchanged glances, silent but terrified, and set to work. The eldest, always the most defiant, muttered under her breath, "This motherfucking idiot has no idea who he's dealing with." The middle one whispered, "Stop talking, you're going to get us killed." But the youngest stayed silent, trying to hold everyone together. Hours passed, and the manager circled, nitpicking every move, yelling, calling them stupid, worthless bitches and rotten pieces of trash. He even forced them to lick a spill off the floor to teach them a lesson. His face twisted with sadistic pleasure. The triplets' stomachs churned and tears welled in their eyes, but they refused to give him the satisfaction of screaming. From the parking lot, a sleek black car had pulled up. A tall, impeccably dressed black man stepped out, his presence commanding attention. He had been observing the chaos, the manager's cruelty, and the girl's endurance. Something about the way they moved, tired but unbroken, caught his interest. He shook his head, lips pressed into a straight line, anger simmering beneath calm. "This isn't right," he muttered to himself, taking a step closer. The triplets, oblivious, continued to suffer, their bond fraying under the weight of exhaustion and humiliation. The billionaire's eyes lingered on them, calculating, realizing that something had to change, and soon. By the time lunch rolled around, the triplets were barely holding themselves together. Every step felt like walking through fire, and every glare from the manager pushed them closer to snapping. The eldest slammed a mop against the floor, frustration pouring out. "I can't take this shit anymore. That prick is insane." Her voice cracked, sharp with anger. The middle twin shot her a look, annoyed. "Stop whining, idiot. If you make a scene, we're all screwed. Focus." Tension simmered like a storm between them. The youngest, trying to mediate, rubbed her temples. "Can't we just do our job and get out? Fighting with each other isn't gonna help." But the words fell flat. Every small mistake was amplified by the manager's constant tirades. "You fucking imbeciles! Stupid, worthless trash!" he screamed when a tray tipped over, water and soda spilling everywhere. One of the triplets bit back a retort, "You rotten prick," but caught his piercing glare and shut her mouth, swallowing back rage and humiliation. Their hands shook, their eyes stung, and their minds screamed for escape. As they worked, whispers and blame slid between them. "This is all your fault," the eldest hissed when the youngest accidentally bumped a cart. "No, you idiot, you were the one who tripped." The middle twin groaned, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Can you both shut the fuck up? I can't deal with this drama on top of him yelling at us." The fighting, barely controlled, threatened to fracture them completely. Outside, the black luxury car waited silently. The billionaire observed the chaos unfold, noting the manager's cruelty and the girl's resilience. His jaw tightened. Something dark and decisive was brewing inside him, and he knew he couldn't let this continue. By late afternoon, the triplets were physically and mentally drained. Every part of their bodies ached, and every fiber of their being screamed for relief. The manager hovered, arms crossed, shouting insults like a storm. "You worthless bitches! Can't even handle a simple mop! Stupid imbeciles!" One of the triplets' hands shook as she tried to carry a tray of half-eaten desserts, spilling some onto the floor. "Are you blind, idiot?" the manager yelled, slamming a clipboard. "Clean it, now, or you're going to regret existing." The middle twin cursed under her breath. "Fucking prick, why does he have to be such a sadistic asshole?" The eldest glared but said nothing, shoulders trembling with rage and exhaustion. The youngest, lips quivering, tried to steady them all. "Focus, please. Just get through this." But it was almost impossible. Every insult and every task felt like it was designed to break them, to make them crumble. Then, just as the manager leaned in to issue another tirade, a deep, commanding voice cut through the chaos. "That's enough." The room froze. The manager spun around, sneer faltering, to see the billionaire standing there, black suit pristine, eyes burning with controlled fury. "Who the hell do you think you are?" the manager spat, trying to regain his dominance. The billionaire didn't answer, just stepped closer, gaze locked on the terrified but resilient triplets. "You don't humiliate children in my establishments," he said coldly. The words carried weight, authority, and an unspoken threat. The triplets blinked, unsure if this was real, if someone finally saw their suffering. For the first time in hours, they felt a flicker of relief. But deep down, each of them knew things were about to change in ways they couldn't predict. The billionaire's presence wasn't just protection, it was the beginning of a storm, one that could bring salvation or tragedy.
The manager's face turned crimson, veins bulging as he tried to mask his humiliation under a forced, snarling grin. "And who the fuck are you to tell me how to run my staff?" he spat, voice trembling with anger. The triplets shrank back, hearts pounding, unsure if this confrontation would end in disaster or deliverance. The billionaire's eyes didn't waver. "I am the owner of this company," he said slowly, each word sharp, "and I do not tolerate abuse. You humiliate children, and you answer to me." The manager's jaw tightened, his ego screaming to lash out. "They're worthless, useless idiots. I'm just teaching them a lesson," he barked, pointing at the trembling triplets. But the billionaire stepped closer, black suit immaculate, presence immense. "This is not teaching. This is cruelty. And if you touch them again, I will personally see that you're fired, prosecuted, and banned from every property I own. Do you understand?" His voice was calm, but underneath simmered pure rage. The manager's hands shook, mind racing, realizing he had met someone who would not bow to his sadistic whims. The triplets, barely daring to breathe, watched in awe. Their muscles were sore, uniforms stained, but their spirits lifted just a little. For the first time that day, the manager had no power over them. One of the twins whispered, almost inaudibly, "He's going to save us." The middle twin shook her head, skeptical but desperate. "I don't know. Maybe. But what if it's worse later?" The youngest kept her eyes on the billionaire, hope and fear wrestling in her chest. They didn't know it yet, but his intervention was only the start, a chain reaction that would pull them deeper into a world of power, danger, and a darkness they had no idea was coming.
For the rest of the afternoon, the manager avoided direct contact with the triplets, but his anger simmered like a pot ready to boil over. He muttered under his breath, "You stupid little bitches think you're safe because of him? Wait until I get my hands on you." Every glance at the girls was sharp, laden with thinly veiled menace. The triplets moved cautiously, sensing the storm that hung just beneath his forced civility. Even with the billionaire standing nearby, he couldn't protect them from every sneer and every insult thrown in passing. The eldest accidentally dropped a stack of files, and the manager's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Jesus, you idiots are hopeless! How can someone be this fucking useless?" The middle twin's patience snapped. "Shut the fuck up, you rotten prick!" she yelled, her voice shaking with rage. The youngest tried to calm them, but the words fell flat. "Just ignore him," she whispered, teeth clenched. "We survive. That's all that matters." Later in the break room, the triplets huddled together, nursing sore hands and bruised egos. "We're never going to make it here," the eldest said, anger and despair battling in her chest. "We'll just get destroyed eventually." The middle twin kicked a chair, frustration pouring out. "Yeah, but at least we don't have to take it lying down anymore. That guy might be rich, but he's not invincible." The youngest sighed, staring at her reflection in the window. I just hope he can actually help us. I don't know if surviving this place without breaking each other is even possible." Outside, the billionaire's car idled silently, engine off, watching the building with a quiet intensity. He knew the manager wouldn't stop. He knew the girl's suffering had only begun. And deep down, he already sensed that the triplets were going to force him into action sooner than he expected. The next morning, the triplets arrived to find the manager in an unusually smug mood. He smirked as they approached the work area, eyes scanning for any weakness. "Morning, idiots," he sneered. "I trust you didn't fuck anything up overnight." The eldest glared back, lips pressed tight. "We didn't touch anything yet, you rotten prick," she muttered under her breath, but the manager caught it. "You heard me?" he barked, stepping closer, his face red with fury. "What did you just call me, bitch?" The middle twin froze, heart racing. Nothing, sir," she stammered, but it sounded weak even to her own ears. He leaned in, voice dripping venom. "I'm watching you.
One slip, and I swear I'll make you regret existing." He shoved a bucket of dirty water toward them. "Clean the entire lobby with that, and don't even think about whining, you worthless pieces of trash." The triplets exchanged panicked glances. Their hands shook as they grabbed them up, knowing that any mistake could trigger his wrath again. Hours dragged on like an eternity. Sweat ran down their faces, uniforms soaked and sticky. Every small error, the slightest streak on the floor, or the faintest spill, brought fresh insults. "You stupid imbeciles! I should fire all three of you right now!" he yelled. But outside, the black luxury car sat, silent, engine off. The billionaire watched intently, noting every cruel action, every tremble of fear, and every flicker of defiance from the triplets. He could feel the manager's aggression intensifying, and deep inside, he knew it would soon require more than a warning to stop it. For the triplets, each second was a battle not just against the manager, but against their own rising panic, and the cracks forming between them threatened to splinter their bond completely.
By mid-afternoon, the triplets were trembling from exhaustion, their arms raw from mops and scrubbing rags, their faces streaked with sweat and tears. The manager's shouts bounced off the walls like thunder. "Fucking idiots! Can't even handle simple cleaning? What a bunch of worthless bitches!" He slammed a tray to the floor, shattering plates. The youngest twin stumbled back, nearly falling, her legs weak from hours of relentless labor. That was the breaking point. The billionaire, who had been watching silently from the entrance, finally stepped forward. The room seemed to shift around him, the air thick with authority. "Stop," he commanded, voice low but carrying undeniable power. The manager froze, a mix of disbelief and rage crossing his face. "Do I need to remind you who owns this place?" The triplets stared, disbelief and hope colliding in their hearts. The billionaire's gaze swept over them, tired, dirty, but unbroken. "You will not touch them again. You humiliate them, you face consequences you cannot imagine," he continued, each word striking like steel. The manager stammered, trying to retort, but the billionaire's presence was overwhelming. "I said enough. Now get out of my sight before I make you wish you'd never walked into this building." Trembling, the manager backed away, muttering curses under his breath. The triplets looked at each other, relief and awe washing over them. For the first time, they felt protected, seen, and valued. But even as they wiped their tears in shaky hands, a gnawing fear lingered. This was only the beginning. Their lives were about to change, but not without a cost, and none of them could foresee the darkness lurking just around the corner. After the manager stormed off, muttering curses under his breath, the triplets collapsed into a corner of the lobby, trembling with a mix of relief and disbelief. Their uniforms were soaked, their hands raw, and their hearts still raced from hours of fear. "I can't believe he actually stopped him," the eldest whispered, voice hoarse. "Do you think he'll really protect us?" The middle twin wiped her face with the back of her hand, eyes wary. "I don't know. Maybe. But I don't trust anyone anymore. Not even him." The youngest, always the peacemaker, rubbed her arms, trying to calm herself. "We survived today," she said softly. "That's all that matters. We just have to keep surviving." But even as she spoke, tension flared between the triplets. Fingers were pointed over minor mistakes made earlier, whispered accusations of not working fast enough, not paying attention, and worst of all, letting the manager push them to the edge. "You were supposed to catch that tray," the eldest hissed at the youngest. "Don't act like this is all my fault, idiot," the youngest shot back, voice breaking. Outside, the billionaire leaned against his car, observing the fracturing bond he had already noticed between the girls.
Their survival was impressive, yes, but their trust in each other was strained, and he could sense the emotional cracks widening. He knew that protecting them physically was only part of the battle. The real challenge would be keeping them together, strong and prepared for the trials yet to come. Somewhere deep inside, he made a silent vow. No one would harm these girls again if he had any say in it. But the road ahead would be messy, brutal, and unforgiving.
The following morning, the triplets arrived at work expecting another day of torment, but the atmosphere felt different. The manager lingered at the entrance, his sneer replaced by a forced stiffness, clearly aware that his authority had been challenged. He muttered under his breath, "Fucking billionaire thinks he can boss me around," but kept his distance. The triplets moved cautiously, wary of every step and every glance, still reeling from the previous day's confrontation. The billionaire appeared at the lobby door again, black suit immaculate, eyes scanning the girls like a hawk. He motioned subtly for them to approach. "Listen," he said quietly, voice firm but calm. "From today onward, I want you to report directly to me. No more dealing with him. Understood?" The triplets exchanged stunned glances. For the first time, someone was actually giving them control over their own safety. "Yes, sir," the eldest whispered, barely able to contain her gratitude. The youngest nodded silently, relief flooding her body. But even as the billionaire walked away, planning to monitor things closely, tension simmered between the triplets. Hours of constant abuse had left raw nerves and deep distrust. "We're not in the clear yet," the middle twin said, rubbing her sore arms. "Don't think just because he's gone that everything's fine. We have to watch each other's backs now." The eldest shot her a sharp glare. "Don't lecture me, idiot. We're supposed to be a team, not sniping at each other over nothing." The youngest sighed, caught in the middle, knowing their bond was fragile, yet still the only thing keeping them afloat. Outside, the billionaire's car idled quietly. He knew it wouldn't take long for the manager to try subtle revenge, and he also knew that the real storm was only beginning for the triplets. The manager was not one to accept defeat easily. By the next morning, his smug facade had returned, but it was laced with simmering hatred. He muttered to himself as he walked past the triplets, "Think that fucking billionaire can stop me? I'll make them pay without touching them directly." His mind raced with small, cruel schemes, tasks designed to trip them up, subtle sabotages that could ruin their day without leaving a mark. The triplets, exhausted from the previous day's ordeals, felt every ounce of tension in the air. The eldest narrowed her eyes, suspicious. "He's plotting something," she said softly, glancing around. The middle twin snorted, frustration clear in her voice. "Of course he is! That prick never quits! He's probably thinking of a new way to humiliate us and enjoy every second of it." The youngest placed a hand on her sister's shoulders, trying to calm the storm. "We've survived this long. We just have to stay sharp, watch out for each other, and keep going." By mid-afternoon, the subtle sabotage began. A tray was intentionally unbalanced. A mop bucket tipped just enough to spill water on their freshly cleaned floor. "Stupid idiots!" the manager barked, pretending to notice for the first time. "Why can't you do anything right?" The triplets scrambled to fix it, hearts racing, realizing that even without direct confrontation, he was finding ways to hurt them. Outside, the billionaire observed quietly from his car, his eyes narrowing. He understood immediately what was happening. This wasn't just cruelty, it was a test, and he knew he had to intervene before it escalated further. The triplets, still unaware, were walking straight into another layer of torment. By mid-afternoon, the triplets were running errands across the sprawling mall, carrying trays, cleaning spills, and juggling impossible tasks. The manager lurked nearby, a wicked smirk on his face. having tipped over a bucket of soapy water earlier and hidden the warning sign. "You stupid fucking idiots," he muttered to himself, watching them slip and scramble. He relished the chaos, convinced no one was noticing his small acts of cruelty. Then it happened. The middle twin stepped on the slick floor, arms flailing as she tried to catch herself. She crashed into a display rack, knocking products to the ground with a loud crash. Glass shattered, and a sharp shard nicked her arm. Pain shot through her body, but before she could fully react, the manager barked, "You worthless bitch! Look at what you've done now!" She bit back a scream, trembling as blood dripped onto the floor. Her sisters rushed to help, anger and panic surging through them. "Fucking prick!" the eldest hissed, glaring at the manager. "You did this on purpose." Outside, the billionaire had been watching, his jaw tight. He stepped forward immediately, moving faster than anyone expected. The manager froze as the billionaire's presence filled the hallway. "Get away from them," he said coldly, voice low but carrying absolute authority. "You touch them again, and I promise you you'll regret it for the rest of your miserable life." The triplets stared, astonished, relief washing over them like a tidal wave. For the first time, someone had acted decisively to prevent real harm. But the incident left them shaken. The middle twins' arm throbbed, and their bond, already strained, now felt the pressure of fear and helplessness. The billionaire's eyes softened slightly, but deep down, he knew this was just the first of many dangerous trials they would face.
The triplets sat in the small break room, bandages applied and muscles sore, the adrenaline from the accident still coursing through their veins. Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken fear and frustration. "This is insane," the eldest muttered, voice tight. "We can't keep surviving like this. Every day it's another trap, another humiliation." The middle twin kicked the edge of the table, nails scraping the surface. "Yeah, and don't act like we're innocent in this. We keep screwing up, letting him get to us." The youngest, always trying to hold them together, clenched her fists. "Stop it, both of you! Fighting with each other won't fix anything. We're alive, that's what matters. We have to stay united or we'll never get through this." But even as she spoke, tension simmered. Fingers were pointed over who had tripped, who had distracted the others, and who should have noticed the hidden water. "You idiot, you should have seen that coming," the eldest snapped at the youngest. "Don't start blaming me," the youngest shot back, eyes flashing with anger and exhaustion. The middle twin groaned, holding her head. "God, we're a fucking mess! Can't we just survive a day without wanting to kill each other?" Outside the building, the black luxury car idled, Billionaire inside watching quietly. He could see the cracks forming in their bond, the way fear and exhaustion were starting to eat at them from the inside. Protecting them physically was one thing. Keeping them together mentally was another challenge entirely. He exhaled slowly, jaw tight. He knew that if they couldn't maintain trust and unity, the battles ahead would be far more dangerous. And in the back of his mind, he already sensed the tragic path that might lie ahead for some of them, even as he resolved to do everything in his power to prevent it.
The next morning, the triplets entered the mall with dread weighing heavily on their shoulders. The manager's presence was immediate, smirking, pacing, eyes darting toward them like a predator assessing prey. "Morning, idiots," he sneered, voice dripping with malice. "Let's see how much trouble you can get into today." He had spent the night planning subtle traps, hidden spills, misplaced tools, and tricky tasks designed to humiliate them without leaving fingerprints. The eldest twin groaned as she spotted a tray precariously balanced on the counter. "He's doing it again," she muttered, fists clenching. The middle twin whispered harshly, "Just focus, you stupid idiot. Don't give him any reason to scream at us." The youngest took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "We've survived worse. We'll survive this too." But even as they moved carefully, disaster struck. One of the triplets slipped on the hidden spill, sending a pile of merchandise crashing to the floor. The manager's laughter echoed through the hallway. "Stupid bitches! Can't even walk properly." Outside, the billionaire had already noticed the setup. His jaw tightened as he watched the manager's cruel amusement unfold. He stepped forward, black suit immaculate, eyes like coals burning with controlled fury. "Enough," he said, voice low, commanding. The manager froze, caught between fear and defiance. "You will stop this, now," the billionaire continued, taking a deliberate step closer. The triplets watched in awe, as the man who had tormented them for days was suddenly powerless in the presence of someone far more powerful. Relief surged through them, but the eldest twin couldn't shake a gnawing sense of dread. Even with protection, it felt like they were only at the beginning of a long, brutal fight.
By mid-morning, the triplets were exhausted, their muscles screaming from constant labor and fear. The manager's patience had worn thin, and subtle sabotage no longer satisfied him. He stalked them like a predator, eyes wild, muttering under his breath, "You worthless idiots! I'll make you pay today one way or another." Every small mistake was met with sharp curses, threats, and demeaning laughter. The girls flinched at each word, hearts hammering in unison. The eldest twin, trying to protect her sisters, barked, "Stop pushing us, you rotten prick! We're trying!" The middle twin shot a glare at her eldest. "Don't lecture me, idiot! Focus!" The youngest clutched her mop, jaw tight, feeling caught between the constant fear and the rising tension between them. The manager shoved a chair across the floor, causing the youngest to stumble. "Stupid bitch! Can't even stand properly!" he screamed. Pain, humiliation, and frustration collided inside the triplets. Tears threatened to spill, but they swallowed them, refusing to give him the satisfaction. Outside, the billionaire's black luxury car had pulled closer, engine idling quietly. He had already witnessed the subtle sabotage earlier in the week, but now the manager's aggression was escalating to a dangerous level. He stepped forward, eyes sharp, jaw set. "That's enough," he said, voice low and controlled but laced with lethal authority. The manager froze, chest heaving, realizing he was no longer in control. The triplets, trembling, stared at him in awe. For a moment they could breathe, but deep down, they knew the real challenge was far from over, and the dark path ahead was only growing steeper. By the afternoon, the triplets were barely standing, muscles trembling, arms sore, and spirits frayed. The manager had retreated temporarily, but his earlier aggression had left invisible scars. Every glance at him reminded them of the humiliation. Every word he had screamed still echoed in their minds. "I hate this place," the eldest muttered, rubbing her temples. "I can't take it anymore." The middle twin scowled, exhaustion twisting her features. "We're not even safe when he's not around. He's planning something, I can feel it. That prick never quits." The youngest placed a hand on each sister's shoulder, trying to ground them. "We survived everything before. We'll survive whatever he plans next. We have to stick together." But even as she said it, doubt gnawed at their bond, tiny fissures forming between them. The fear had begun to creep into their interactions, turning whispers into sharp accusations and minor mistakes into arguments. Meanwhile, the billionaire sat in his sleek black car outside, watching intently. His mind raced with strategies. The manager's cruelty had gone too far. Intervention was necessary, but it couldn't be just words. Plans were forming, quiet, precise, and ruthless. He needed the triplets safe, but he also wanted the manager to understand the consequences of pushing them further. His fists clenched, jaw tight. He had no intention of letting this sadistic imbecile continue terrorizing them. The triplets, oblivious to the plotting outside, clung to each other, unaware that their lives were about to be pulled even deeper into a dangerous game of power, revenge, and survival.
The following day, the triplets entered the mall, cautious eyes scanning every corner, bracing for the manager's cruelty. But something felt different. The usual sneer and harsh muttering were absent. He barked a few orders, but there was hesitation in his voice and a faint unease in his posture. The triplets, exhausted but alert, exchanged glances, sensing a shift. Meanwhile, the billionaire had made his move behind the scenes. Security cameras had caught every instance of abuse, and internal complaints were quietly filed against the manager. Word of an impending investigation began circulating subtly among the staff. The manager, arrogant and blinded by his own ego, didn't notice the tightening noose. His small acts of cruelty, the tipped bucket, the hidden spills, suddenly felt powerless. The triplets worked cautiously, aware but still on edge, sensing that someone was watching more than ever. By mid-afternoon, the manager's attempts to assert dominance faltered. A sharp knock at the office door startled him, and a security supervisor appeared with a formal notice in hand. "Effective immediately, you are suspended pending review of your conduct," the supervisor stated. The manager's face twisted in disbelief and rage. The triplets, standing nearby, felt a cautious relief wash over them. For the first time in days, they could breathe without fear of immediate punishment. Outside, the billionaire's car remained, engined off, eyes watching, knowing this was only the first step in ensuring their safety and setting the stage for the battles still to come.
For the first time in days, the triplets walked through the lobby without trembling. The manager's absence, temporary though it was, felt like a reprieve. Their muscles still ached, uniforms dirty and stained, but their hearts lifted slightly with the knowledge that someone was finally watching out for them. "Maybe things are actually changing," the eldest whispered, cautious optimism in her voice. The middle twin snorted, skepticism clear in her tone. "Don't get too comfortable. That prick isn't one forever. You know he'll be back, and next time he'll try something worse." The youngest tried to mediate, placing a hand on each sister's shoulder. "We survived the worst already. We just have to stay smart, watch each other, and keep going." The sisters nodded, silently agreeing to stay united, at least for now. But even as they moved through their tasks, subtle reminders of the manager's previous cruelty, scratched floors, spilled liquids, and bruises kept them on edge. Outside, the billionaire's black luxury car gleamed in the afternoon sun. He observed the triplets, noting the cautious hope in their eyes. But he also noticed the lingering fear and tension between them. The small victory against the manager had done more than remove immediate danger. It had exposed just how fragile the girls' trust in each other was. He knew that to truly protect them, he would have to strengthen both their safety and their bond, and that the dark trials awaiting them would test everything: their resilience, their loyalty, and their very survival.
The manager's suspension had done little to quell his rage. Behind the scenes, he plotted quietly, furious that the billionaire had humiliated him publicly. "Those stupid bitches think they're safe now? Fuck that. I'll find another way to ruin them," he muttered, pacing his small office. Every ounce of his pride demanded revenge, but he had to be subtle. Too much overt aggression would only get him fired permanently. Meanwhile, the triplets arrived at the mall, muscles sore, faces pale, but hearts cautiously hopeful. Their bond, though still frayed, had gained a tiny thread of trust since the manager's suspension. "We've got to be careful," the eldest whispered, glancing around. "He's not done. That prick'll find a way." The middle twin nodded sharply. "Yeah, don't think for a second this is over. He's a fucking imbecile, but he's dangerous too." The youngest tried to calm them, her voice soft but firm. "We've survived worse. We just need to stick together no matter what." By mid-afternoon, the manager enacted his covert plan.
He had bribed a few employees to misplace supplies and create minor accidents in the triplets' path. One by one, small obstacles appeared: slick floors, misaligned trays, missing cleaning supplies. Stupid fucking idiots. Let's see how they handle this without me touching them. The triplets struggled, their coordination tested as tension and exhaustion built. Outside, the billionaire observed from his sleek black car, jaw tight. He knew the subtle sabotage was deliberate, and he realized that the triplets' survival would now depend on quick thinking, resilience, and unwavering trust in each other, and that their challenges were far from over.
By mid-morning, the triplets were exhausted from dodging obstacles and repairing the minor accidents the manager had orchestrated. Every step felt like walking a tightrope, and every glance at the floor or nearby shelves carried tension. "I can't do this all day," the eldest muttered, frustration cracking her voice. "We're idiots if we keep falling for his traps." The middle twin scowled, wiping sweat from her brow. "Don't act like you're perfect, idiot. We all have to be alert or he wins. That prick thinks he can break us slowly." The youngest, trying to mediate, sighed. "We've survived everything so far. We just have to stick together and stay smart. That's the only way." But even as she spoke, her stomach twisted. The manager's subtle sabotage had grown more dangerous. Hidden wet patches, tilted carts, and misplaced items created a labyrinth of hazards. Then disaster struck. The youngest twin slipped on a concealed spill, crashing into a glass display. Shards shattered around her, cutting her arm deeply. Blood ran down her wrist, and she gasped in pain. The eldest screamed, rushing to help, while the middle twin cursed the manager under her breath. "Fucking rotten prick!" she yelled, eyes blazing with rage. The billionaire, standing outside in his sleek black car, saw the accident instantly. His jaw tightened, anger flaring. This was no longer a test of patience. This was outright endangerment. He stepped out, black suit sharp, authority radiating. "Enough," he said, voice cold and unyielding. The manager froze, realizing his schemes were unraveling under the watchful eyes of someone far more powerful.
The youngest twin's arm throbbed with pain, blood seeping through the makeshift bandage her sisters had hurriedly applied. The triplets huddled in a quiet corner of the mall, exhaustion and fear pressing down like a heavy weight. "I can't believe this is happening," the eldest muttered, voice tight with frustration. "We survived the worst of him, and now this?" The middle twin shook her head, jaw tight, eyes burning. "He's a fucking imbecile. I can't believe he's still trying to ruin us after being suspended. That prick will never quit." The youngest, tears prickling at the edges of her eyes, tried to stay strong. "We've got to keep going. We survived yesterday, we survived before, we can survive this too." But even as she spoke, doubt lingered. The manager's cruelty had left marks not just on their bodies, but on their trust in each other. Fingers were pointed, tensions flared, and every small mistake sparked arguments. "It's your fault we got caught in his trap," the eldest hissed at the youngest. "Don't act like this is all my fault," the youngest snapped back, voice breaking. Outside, the billionaire watched silently, jaw tight, heart heavy. He knew the triplets' bond was fraying, and he understood that protecting them physically was only half the battle. The emotional scars, the fear, and the stress threatening to split them apart were just as dangerous. He resolved to do more than just stop the manager. He needed to help the girls find their strength, trust, and unity before the darkness ahead consumed them completely.
The day after the accident, the billionaire called the triplets into a private lounge behind them all. His expression was serious, jaw tight, eyes unwavering. "You've all been through too much," he said, voice low but firm. "And it's not just about stopping him physically. You need to trust each other, rely on each other, and stay united. That's the only way you survive." The triplets exchanged glances, unsure if hope could exist amid their exhaustion and fear. The eldest nodded slowly, voice hoarse. "We've been torn apart by him, but we'll try. I don't want to lose us to this shit." The middle twin clenched her fists, frustration and determination mingling. "Yeah, we're idiots for letting him get under our skin for so long. No more. We stick together." The youngest, eyes bright despite the bruises, added softly, "We'll survive. We have to. Together." Outside, the billionaire's sleek black car gleamed in the afternoon sun, a quiet reminder that he was watching, protecting, and guiding them through the chaos. By mid-afternoon, subtle exercises and challenges were introduced. Tasks designed to rebuild teamwork, sharpen reflexes, and test their ability to anticipate danger. Each step, each small success began to restore fragments of their confidence. The billionaire observed carefully, noting the way their trust wavered and strengthened with each challenge. For the first time in days, the triplets felt a flicker of control over their lives. But deep inside, all of them, girls and billionaire alike, knew the darkest trials were still ahead, and that the manager's cruelty was only the beginning of a much larger storm.
The manager seethed in his office, fists pounding the desk as he stared at the notice of his suspension and the reports piling up against him. Those stupid bitches think they're safe now? Fuck that. I'll make them regret every second of this. His mind raced, concocting ways to regain control, subtle and cruel, without leaving himself vulnerable to the billionaire's watchful eye. Back at the mall, the triplets were beginning to feel the small victories from the billionaire's training and guidance. Their coordination had improved, their trust slightly rebuilt, and their confidence cautiously returning. "We're finally getting somewhere," the eldest whispered, a small smile tugging at her lips. The middle twin rolled her eyes but nodded. "Don't get cocky. That prick will be back, and next time it'll be worse. Remember, we survived today, not forever." The youngest took a deep breath, nodding. "We've got to stick together, no matter what." By late afternoon, subtle sabotage began to appear again. Hidden obstacles, shifted objects, and carefully placed distractions designed to test the triplets' alertness. But this time, their training paid off. They moved with precision, alertness, and communication, avoiding most hazards. Outside, the billionaire observed from his sleek black car, noting their improvement and the manager's predictably frustrated reactions. Though the triplets were still vulnerable, each small victory against the manager's schemes strengthened their bond and reinforced the billionaire's growing conviction that he would do whatever it took to keep them alive, even as darkness loomed ahead. The day started quietly, the triplets moving through their tasks with careful precision. For a moment, it felt like they were finally in control, able to anticipate obstacles and avoid mistakes. But the manager's fury had reached a dangerous boiling point. He had set a trap that was more devious than anything before. A loose panel on the stairs, slick from hidden water, designed to turn a simple walk into disaster. The middle twin stepped onto the stairs, unaware of the hazard. In a heartbeat, she slipped, arms flailing, crashing down several steps. Pain shot through her leg, sharp and unforgiving, and she screamed. Her sisters rushed to her side, panic surging through them. "Fucking prick!" the eldest yelled, glaring at the distant office where the manager lurked, invisible but present. The youngest pressed a hand to her mouth, heart pounding as she watched her sister writhe in pain. Outside, the billionaire had already sprung into action, leaping from his car and rushing toward the scene with a calm urgency that belied the fury burning in him. The accident left the triplets shaken to their core.
Not only had the manager physically endangered them, but the trauma began to crack the fragile trust they had been rebuilding. The billionaire, kneeling beside the injured twin, reassured them with a firm voice. "You are stronger than you know. Stick together. Survive. Nothing else matters right now." The triplets nodded, shaken but determined. Deep down, each of them realized that survival wasn't just about avoiding harm. It was about facing the darkness around them and the chaos within themselves, and somehow finding the strength to continue.
The injured middle twin was taken to a nearby clinic, her arm heavily bandaged, the pain sharp but manageable. The triplets sat together in silence, exhaustion and fear weighing heavily on them. Every glance at one another carried unspoken tension, blame, guilt, and the lingering fear of the manager's relentless schemes. "We can't keep going like this," the eldest muttered, voice tight. "He's gonna destroy us if we let him." The youngest squeezed her sister's hand, voice soft but firm. "We survived the worst already. We have to stick together. That's the only way we make it out alive." The middle twin, still throbbing with pain, looked at them, eyes damp but resolute. "I know, I hate that we're tearing ourselves apart over him. He's a fucking imbecile, but he's making us doubt each other, and that's worse than any injury." Outside, the billionaire observed quietly from his sleek black car, eyes dark with concern. He understood that the manager's true weapon wasn't just cruelty, it was fear, mistrust, and division. By evening, the triplets regrouped in the lounge behind the mall, attempting to mend both their bodies and their bond. The billionaire spoke firmly, guiding them through breathing exercises and trust-building tasks. "You have survived this long because you refuse to break, but surviving is not enough. You must trust each other, communicate, and act as one. Only then can you withstand what's coming." The girls nodded, exhausted but slowly reclaiming a small spark of hope. Yet even as they leaned on one another, a shadow of dread lingered. They all knew that the next chapter of their ordeal would demand more than teamwork. It would demand sacrifice.
The next morning, the triplets returned to the mole, but something felt heavier in the air. The youngest twin moved slowly, her steps hesitant, still haunted by the previous day's accident. "We have to keep going," the eldest whispered, trying to push through the fear gripping them all. The middle twin, still bandaged, winced with each step, her frustration barely contained. "This is fucking insane! How much more can we take?" Before they could brace themselves, a sharp, sudden chaos erupted. The manager, emboldened by his subtle schemes and the triplets' brief relief, had tampered with heavy equipment in a storage area. One of the shelves collapsed, sending a cascade of boxes and metal parts crashing down. The eldest twin tried to push her sisters out of the way, but in a devastating instant, the middle twin was struck, pinned beneath the heavy debris. Her scream cut through the air, terror and pain fused into a single horrific sound. The youngest screamed, tears blinding her vision, clawing at the wreckage. The billionaire, already nearby, dashed forward, fury radiating from his every movement. He lifted the debris with brute strength, rescuing the middle twin, but the damage was done. Physical and emotional scars etched deeply into all three girls. The triplets huddled together afterward, trembling and sobbing. Fear, guilt, and rage coiled tightly within them. The manager had pushed too far, and the consequences were real. The billionaire knelt beside them, voice steady but harsh. "You survived, yes. But surviving is only the beginning. You must be ready for the darkness ahead. It will demand more than courage. It will demand everything." The triplets nodded weakly, the weight of the day settling on their shoulders, unaware that the next blow would be even more devastating.
The mall was eerily quiet the next day. The triplets' laughter and chatter replaced by a tense, hollow silence. The middle twin, still recovering from the previous day's injury, sat apart, eyes distant.
The youngest clutched her sister's hand, trembling. "We can't let him win," she whispered, voice breaking. The eldest nodded slowly, but her usual fire was dimmed, replaced by exhaustion and fear. "I know, but we're barely holding on." Then tragedy struck. The manager, unhinged and desperate to reclaim control, orchestrated a reckless stunt near the parking lot. A heavy cart, left unsecured, toppled toward the youngest twin. She froze, terror paralyzing her, and in a split second her sisters lunged to protect her. The eldest and middle twins pushed her out of the way, but the weight of the falling metal struck them instead. Screams tore through the air. The youngest could only watch in horror as her sisters were crushed, their lives ending violently and suddenly, leaving her alone, trembling and devastated. The billionaire arrived moments later, rage and grief written on his face. He held the youngest twin tightly, whispering fierce promises of protection, but even his power could not undo the horror she had witnessed. She sobbed uncontrollably, the weight of loss pressing down like a vice. The world she had known, the bond with her sisters, the fragile trust, the small victories, was gone. And yet, amidst the devastation, the billionaire's voice was steady, commanding. "You survived this. You are strong. You will rise from this, even when it feels impossible." The youngest nodded weakly, tears streaming, knowing that the final chapter of her journey and the proposal awaiting her would demand courage far beyond anything she had imagined.
The youngest twin sat in the quiet of the billionaire's private lounge, her body trembling and eyes red from endless tears. The echoes of her sisters' screams and the chaos of their deaths haunted her every thought. She had survived, but the cost had been unimaginable. The world felt hollow, the weight of grief pressing down with suffocating force. "I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm ready," she whispered, voice barely audible. The billionaire knelt beside her, hands gently holding hers. "I know," he said softly, voice firm but kind. "You've lost so much, and nothing can change that. But surviving, continuing, and finding strength, that is what matters now." He took a deep breath, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "I want to spend the rest of my life protecting you, loving you. Will you marry me?" The youngest twin stared, frozen. Pain, fear, and sorrow clashed with a strange sense of hope. After a long pause, she nodded, voice trembling. "Yes, I'll try. I'll try to be ready." The billionaire smiled faintly, tears in his own eyes. Though the trauma of the journey could never be erased, together they would forge a fragile peace. Outside, the world continued its chaos. But in that room, there was a sense of survival, resilience, and the first flicker of hope for the future. Moral of the story: life can be brutally unfair, and tragedy can strike without warning. True strength is not in avoiding pain, but in enduring it, learning from it, and finding the courage to continue despite unimaginable loss. Trust, unity, and resilience can carry us through the darkest trials. What would you do if you faced impossible loss and had to choose to move forward? Share your thoughts in the comments below.